every once in a while. We did one in Thousand Oaks not too long ago, and close to 400 people showed up. We had, we had judges that were, angel investors, and we had judges that were representatives from billion-dollar venture funds. So it's a lot of fun. So come check out the events, and if you're starting a company especially, hopefully we can add some value to you. So, real estate panel. We brought together these guys because each of them has a very, very unique approach and unique company. I'm going to let them each say something about themselves. We'll start on the end with Matt from HomeStack.
What do you want to hear?
I want you to say a little bit about yourself, your background, and then tell us about HomeStack.
So I'm Matthew Potter, third generation real estate agent. Started a company called HomeStack. We build white label applications for real estate agents, real estate brokers, and real estate companies. A lot of the real estate apps in the app stores, both Apple and Android, are ours, and we power them. A lot of the apps you see with Sotheby's, Keller Williams, Pinnacle Estate Properties are all our applications that we built in real estate.
Cool.
Max. I'm Max Goldman, and I'm head of product for Rex Real Estate Exchange. And Rex is a digital alternative to the traditional real estate agent, where we use technology to target buyers and sellers going around the MLS, so a little bit different than that it's been doing. And as a result, we actually reduce agent commissions from 5-6% to 2%. So with Rex, we offer you the opportunity to sell your home for 2% all in.
Max, never make a commercial version of your website.
We're an alternative, not a replacement. We're all
my name is Sullivan. I am a tenant representation commercial real estate broker with Avison. Primarily my focus is with startups and tech companies from the west side of Los Angeles through Canada.
Cool. So thanks guys for being a part of this. So I'm gonna start with, you started off kind of joking with him, but there's a bit of truth to that, right? Because if Rex is insanely successful and that's the next sort of step, and nobody uses realtors anymore, then HomeStack will not be making apps anymore because there's no realtors to make apps for, and you will have to be working for a company like him if there's in the commercial space, right? So I'm sure there is some controversy probably and some people going after you, but talk a little bit about that. Has there been any pushback to the fact that, if you were insanely successful, realtors would be more employees of you guys versus, agents that collect a commission, right?
Sure. Well, the traditional, a real estate agent is the most populated sort of job in the U.S. There's over 1.5 million, close to that, agents, because a lot of agents aren't full-time agents. They're your mom, they're your aunt, they're your sister's best friend. So we don't think we are going to fully replace or displace agents. However, we do feel like with the information age and all of this information being readily available, there is an opportunity for us to kind of provide an alternative that substitutes, your friend or your mom or whomever it is that sells one house a year, and will still take X commission from you, as well as require you to compensate the buy-side agent because they're only able to market strictly via the MLS. So have we gotten pushback? Yes, we've gotten some nasty pushback from some agents. However, I will say good agents think it's an awesome idea, and they're all about it. Like they don't argue with it. I have friends that have been in real estate for years, and they're like, "That's awesome. That's cool. Like you guys are the future." And then there's really disgruntled agents, but I think they're threatened because they're not confident in their abilities.
Well, see, I think
the market is huge. Right?
I recently did a big conference, and all of a sudden, certain people in that industry that I did a conference in were like turned from being my best friend, because I used to sponsor their conferences, literally write them checks, to now I'm the enemy, and they got really aggressive against me. And I actually realized that the most successful ones weren't rude to me, weren't mean to me, actually like reached out, said congratulations, let me know how I can help, because I think certain people are confident in what they do, and they realize like an app is not going to be able to replace me because I add that value. They pay me that because I'm worth it. And I think that might be something, but going a little bit towards the sort of technology side of what you guys do, and you guys, I've done a little research on Rex. I talked to Jack, the CEO, a couple times, and I met the team, and I love what you guys are doing with technology, especially the marketing side of technology, like the Facebook retargeting. Like they know who went and looked at a house, so that they can go, hey, that person right there looked at a house in Thousand Oaks, and so every time a house in Thousand Oaks comes, we're going to make sure they see that there's an open house there on that day at that time, and they can serve that ad very, very specifically and targeted really well. Matt, on the HomeStack side, on the apps that you build for individual realtors, is there an element of that kind of technology, or at least some way because I'm assuming that as an individual agent, it would be kind of tough to build something like that from scratch, or to have that kind of presence online, right?
Yeah, so that's pretty much what we saw with Redfin and Zillow and Trulia coming out. Was the reason why consumers were using those sites is because there was no alternative to that. And real estate agents weren't capable of building something that was good enough to be an alternative to those sites. And so currently, right now, if you're working with a real estate agent and you want to feel empowered in search, which everybody wants to do, the real estate agent has nowhere to tell you where to go to find accurate data. So Zillow's data is bad, as everyone knows. It's about 30% accurate. Redfin, they're not going to tell you to use Redfin because that's discount commissions, just like Rex. So we build a solution for the real estate agent that has up-to-date and accurate information and allows the consumer or yourselves to search inside the application and find the right listing that you want.
So that I understand the product, I'm a realtor, I get an app through HomeStack so that I can give every client of mine accurate, up-to-the-minute information, but when they do go to look at the house and their schedule of viewing or whatever, all that stuff, it will go directly to my agent.
Correct.
So that
when an agent gets an app with us and you're searching in that app, the only person that you can contact is that agent. So it's not like a Zillow model where they sell impression ads on a listing, which is very frustrating to the agents because, as you know, you spend your time door knocking, pounding the pavement, getting a listing, then it goes in the MLS, and now there's 50 agents being advertised on my listing that I spent my marketing dollars, my time, and all of that going to go get. So with our application, it keeps and incubates their clients in one app with accurate data and allows them to be the only point of contact.
That's awesome. So, Stephen, at Avison, I know that a lot of, in the startup world, what you do is helping people find office space, negotiate better deals and things like that. Do you guys do anything special from a technology side for somebody sort of looking to buy, or is it more of a hands-on approach to those clients that need you?
It's certainly more of a hands-on approach. If you need to find office space and you've done it before, there's plenty of websites like LoopNet and CoStar and Liquid Space, something like that, where you can go find office space. Where a startup in particular can get in trouble is going through this whole process and not having their long-term growth plan completely mapped out, and working with a professional at Avison or one of the larger real estate firms or something like that, and kind of understanding with that growth plan, you can be, you can have exponential growth almost overnight, or you can be acquired, and if you've signed a multi-year lease, or there's some sort of clause that prohibits you from getting out of that lease, or there's some sort of buyout that could otherwise bankrupt your company, you need to go and doing the groundwork on that. You need to be completely cognizant of that and make sure you limit your exposure.
Yeah, I think that it's funny because from the earliest stage startup, there's a lot of sort of accountants, lawyers, maybe even IP attorneys, people like that, lots of investors, and people will tell you, like, make sure you get the right one, make sure you get the right person. And every once in a while you hear that about commercial real estate people as well. But I don't know if there's that big of an emphasis on it, but I've probably heard just as many, if not more, horror stories from people that didn't negotiate their stuff right. And they, you're a startup that runs out of money, they have to break a lease because they can't afford to pay, and then the CEO didn't realize that he was just filling out the form, put in his own social number, and all of a sudden he owes the landlord, the 30 grand to back out of the contract, not the company. And so do you have other horror stories of sort of things like that, or like a company wants to, because I literally, so I'm a part of a few Slack groups of different venture firms' portfolios. And I don't know if a week or two goes by where somebody on one of those groups says, we're moving out of this office, but we have the lease for another 6 months. Any of you guys able to take this on for us? Because they're about to pay a huge fee to get out of it. And does that happen very regularly? And how do you guys deal with that kind of stuff?
It happens fairly regularly, and there is a lot of kind of rotation within commercial real estate world on the broker side. Sometimes, like you said, it'll be your uncle or your uncle's friend or something like that you'll get introduced to, and they'll find you a deal and you'll sign the lease, and you may not even have a lawyer look it over or anything like that. So we do get a lot of calls of hey, in 3 months the landlord has a right to kick us out because LinkedIn needs our office space. I can't stop my business. Where are we going to go? So as far as specific horror stories, there's a million of them, but a lot of what we do is really just kind of being a problem solver and getting you out of those sticky situations that you didn't necessarily see in the beginning.
Yeah, is it very much like there's a lot of businesses where you're constantly told you should be getting one of these or doing something like this, but then only really get engaged when somebody has a problem? Or is it a good mix? Do enough people understand ahead of time they need it?
It's a good mix. Sometimes with startups in particular, with a millennial generation that thinks they can and can usually do most things from their computer. They think they can enter in a very complicated, landlord-friendly, long-term lease document, which is probably going to be the biggest expense they have outside the payroll for the next 5 years or 10 years or something like that, and they think they could do that themselves. And then with things like LegalZoom, they may not even have a lawyer look it over. So I would just caution that, for a tenant, real estate brokers on the commercial side are free. That is paid by the landlord, and there's been argument of, well, I'll just tell them to reimburse me for that fee. That fee has already been built into the budget. These landlords most of the time are institutional Wall Street guys that if they don't pay me, they'll just bonus themselves out in New York. Yeah. So it's a benefit if you don't hire us again, hire another real estate broker, and always have a lawyer look over any legal document.
The lawyer part is something that very young startups learn very quickly if they get any kind of traction at all. Everyone thinks that they got it under control until shit hits the fan or something. So going back maybe toward the more residential mainstream sort of side of the equation. Matt, when you started HomeStack, it was a few years ago, and was it, I bet nowadays it's sort of maybe not easy, because it's never easy, but easier to go to a real estate agent and say, you should have your own app. And they understand what that means. When you first started, was there sort of a learning curve? And it might be shitty of me to say, I didn't say the shitty thing yet. But real estate agents, or a lot of them that are sort of the mom's friend and the longtime family friend, one of my uncles, aren't necessarily known as the most sophisticated technological people. They're good. They might be good at what they do, but they're not techies.
We are currently
Well, no, I started off by saying it's probably a shitty thing to say because some people are not that way.
Inclination towards technology, and they do a poor job with clients or businesses, which causes them massive pain.
So, was it a tougher sell at the beginning, and now it's a little easier? Is there different challenges now versus back then? So what has been the trajectory, sort of from the sales process side?
Yeah, so it was really funny starting a real estate tech company in the biggest real estate recession ever. So that was really cool. About 5 years ago is when we started. But be a contrarian, that's what I always say. So my business partner Will always says, skate to where the puck's going to be, and I believe that's a Wayne Gretzky quote. But started off, and I would go into real estate companies, me and my business partner, and we would give a talk and sales pitch on our app. And we would say, everyone in here raise your hands who's downloaded an app. And we'd get maybe 2 people in a room of 50 who had downloaded an app. And now, when we walk into a sales pitch, or our salespeople do, everyone raises their hands. So in the beginning, it was sort of a novelty, but now it's become a lot easier. In fact, I think the number one age group is the boomers coming on Facebook, and they're all using the mobile apps on the phone because it's a lot easier, which is you're seeing computer sales in a lot of different companies going way down. Tablet and phone sales are going through the roof. So people have become a lot more used to using the apps and on the phone, so it's become a lot less of a hindrance. I wouldn't say that real estate agents aren't the most sophisticated people. I think they're very sophisticated. The average age of a real estate agent is 56 years old. So the difference being is my generation, we grew up with apps. They're having to go back and relearn it after having, Blackberries and Palm Pilots and, brick phones, and the ones that were so big that you'd hold it with 2 hands. So, I would say sophistication is being able to relearn different systems as quickly as possible, and I think they've done that, and it has gotten a lot easier because of the mainstream of the app stores so far.
Yeah. So has there been an evolution? Because you can clearly see that, as time goes by, the user experience on apps has changed a lot as well, because as people get more familiar, more voice recognition, more just streamlined, right? Swiping versus just seeing all the information on one page and all that. So has the product changed a lot over the years to compensate for that?
Oh yeah, we're already on our 6th version of our app. The first version is laughable to me now. It was a digital interactive business card. It literally didn't even have a picture of the agent. It just had their name, their phone number, and their email, and you could call, text, or email them. And it had their photo as the app icon, right? But if you can't laugh at your first version of whatever you built, then you're going too slow. And so I love telling that story. So yeah, we started off with just a digital interactive business card, then we got a little more sophisticated, you could do a couple more things. Now we have a full-scale MLS search where we built direct pipelines into all the different MLSs with highly sophisticated data structures and quick downloading of new listings. I think we're one of the fastest ones. We get listings, I believe, every minute now. So it's been a lot of fun. And,
did you say, because when I met you the other day and we talked about it, you had done over 6,000, I think, apps?
Yeah.
Which is, you told me you couldn't verify it, but it might be one of the most prolific app developers in existence, right?
Yeah.
6,000 iPhone apps.
Yeah, I can't prove it. There might be one other company, and I'm not sure.
Well, if you can't prove it, it's
one.
Not impressive at all. Never mind.
But yeah, we have about 6,000 apps that we've built and counting. We're doing a lot every month, and so.
Is there a challenge to that in terms of? Do you have to sort of separately upload them if you want to make an update? How does that work? Is that a huge technology challenge?
Yeah, so that was a huge problem.
Yeah.
And we saw that when, I don't know if anyone remembers, but Apple changed to Apple Maps from Google Maps. And all of our apps broke. And so I was like, wow, we can't have this ever happen again if Apple decides to go back to Google, because they were having a lot of problems with their mapping software. So we built this back-end system that allows us to upload apps at will in both Android and Apple's app stores, as well as update them and track the versioning and all that different stuff. And I believe that's been one of the huge keys to our success, because we've seen competitors arise, but the problem is they get to this precipice of apps and they don't know how to update them or upload them. And so we're seeing, competitors try and sell us their business.
Why do you guys need so many apps in the industry? 6,000, and how many of those apps are profitable?
So every app is profitable, and the reason there are so many apps in this industry is real estate agents are a lot like attorneys. All of them are their own business.
I felt that,
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
So they're really 1099. So no real estate agent is an employee. So they compete with each other in their own companies, as well as agents in other companies. So every agent has their own marketing plan, their own app, their own website. They are their own little marketing machine and their own company, even though they sit under an umbrella, which is Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker, whatever it is.
Yeah, so they're still their own independent agents.
Yeah.
So speaking of product and
Oh,
sort
you're
of,
creating applications for the real estate agents.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
yeah,
It came off to me that 6,000 apps were just like a massive amount of real estate utility.
No.
no, it's a similar app.
Yeah, really impressive.
That would
Rex is trying to keep up. They have 2 or 3.
that is still a huge feat.
So going to Rex now and talking about product and iteration, I know that Rex from the beginning came out as a technology company, heavy on the engineering side. I know, Chuck, your CTO, Charles, he, if you call him, the dude I grew up with named Chuck, but in the office he corrects me and he goes, it's Charles, because he doesn't want his coworkers to call him Chuck.
I didn't know that. That's good.
He worked with my brother when I was in high school. They were engineers together at a company, and he was Chuck back then. But I know that the product has had a few iterations and has grown over time from the perspective of being a fairly new company and getting out there, and at the beginning only selling a couple homes, and now you guys are doing, I don't know, 10 or more a month or something. How much has the influence of having a real amount of customers coming through changed that product, and how's the evolution gone from the standpoint of learning?
It's been huge. We launched to the public, we were in extreme stealth, November of 2015, so about a little over a year, and it was extremely difficult to position your product when you're giving this promise. We went out with 1% initially.
Yeah.
Right, we're giving this promise that we can sell your house
I waited too long.
80% faster, or 80% cheaper and faster, and you have one home listed. So that was an extreme challenge in terms of how do you construct a product, how do you construct a search, how do you get people's confidence, because to them it's just words on paper or on a site in this instance. So what we've done is to start out, we hustled really hard. Like with any startup, you have to go out and hustle. You can't rely on the product itself to do the work, and build that social proof, and constantly talk to our customers, constantly talk to people in real estate. We talk to agents, we talk to attorneys, we talk to everyone that would listen, right? And really understand what is it that is important to people. And then we set benchmarks and baselines and measure and test. And we've listed over 100 homes in a year with a few agents, which is, that was our goal. But if you asked us in January of last year, how is that going to happen? We had no idea.
I remember, so I know their CTO for a million years because he worked with my brother, and I remember him telling me he works for a new company, or he started a new company called Rex, and they came to an 805 Startups event, a few of the employees, and I met them and I was like, oh cool, a company called Rex. But then one day I was driving down Moore Park Road in Thousand Oaks near my house, and I saw a rec sign for an open house, and I was like, holy crap, they have a house for sale. And I remember that going in the office back then, that was the first time I went in. It was mostly just to congratulate them, and I remember them being at that very early stage, not totally knowing that we're trying to get to 10 houses, then it's 100.
Yep.
And now, now you guys are beyond that, but
it's all about, from marketing to the product to sales, it's trying to integrate everything when you have a really massive idea and constantly going out there and seeing what works, what we know we're trying to do good, we know we mean well, and we know it's a great experience, but getting people to believe that, hooking people in, I mean, a lot of it is sales, right?
Yeah.
And getting that momentum going, that was the biggest challenge, and now how do you scale this? Right, that's our next.
Yeah, because you guys just recently launched in San Diego.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was our first step outside of the greater LA area, San Diego. So that's in San Diego in the first few weeks or few months, we've done more than we did for 6 months at REC. So it just shows to tell you that you can learn a lot over the course of the year.
That's really cool. So one thing I remember seeing at Rex, and it'd be interesting to know from Matt if you guys did similar things at HomeStack, and then we'll go back to the commercial side. I have some questions there. Is I remember Charles and a bunch of the techies and pretty much everyone, as far as I knew, had a real estate license on the team, whether they were in sales or an engineer. Was that, you think, super important, or was it kind of like team building?
I think it is. I think it's pretty cool that most people have a license. I don't know how much you learn from the test itself. You get a license, but it does allow us to, when we were initially building out and scaling, it allowed people to host open houses, answer questions about homes, because there's really strict regulations, and we are 100% by the books. We don't want to cut any angles. So if you don't have a license and someone asks a question about a home in California, you can't answer that question legally. So part of that was for scale.
What if you're a robot?
That's our next foray, right? That's the question. So we are working with Watson on AI solutions that can actually circumvent some of those legislations and enable us to scale and not rely on as much manpower as a traditional agent would. So
get the robot a license.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can program a robot to pass the test.
It's a pretty easy test.
Well, as well as when people call in, or you can go on the site and message homeowners directly questions or ask Rex. But if it's the robot answering, the robot responding, do they need a license? That's a question. Maybe
the
not.
first 805 event that I remember, I did a fireside chat with Jack, and I was doing a little bit of research on Rex, and it was like 2 a.m. and I go onto the Rex website, and the little corner thing popped up. It was like, hey, how may I help you? And I purposely started asking questions and messing with it a little bit, because I was like, there's no chance somebody is up at 2 in the morning, but there was a real person actually. I didn't ask anything complicated, but I just wanted to see if there was a real person there. I started asking weird questions, and yes, I'm a real person. And I was like, do you have any real questions? They're pretty cool about it, but I was like, my mind was blown. I thought it was awesome in customer service. That's really cool to know. Do you guys have, getting back to the question earlier, do you guys have other members of your team, like the techies or anyone, have licenses and stuff, or is it not really at this point necessary anymore?
No, it hasn't been necessary, even though probably everyone on the team could pass the real estate test now, because we pretty much take them through a full intensive real estate training, any salesperson that comes on our team. Because you got to know how to talk the talk and walk the walk for real estate agents to respect you. And so that's part of like pride with our sales process, is literally you could probably go pass your real estate test if you become a salesperson at HomeStack. So
Then you can sell real estate.
yeah. If you wanted.
So going back to the commercial side and the Avison, something that I thought was really cool was when we first met, you gave us a map of all of Southern California was sort of like the hubs, like Pasadena and Venice and Santa Monica, and Conejo Valley was on there. I'm not sure if Santa Barbara was, but you definitely had half the 805 or so in there. And what was cool to me about it is there's companies like Rex, right, who raise a lot of money, have lots of employees, and they're based in our area, but there's also tons of those companies in Silicon Beach and that whole area, and Venice, especially in Santa Monica, has gotten crazy expensive. And when you showed me the map, it really, it showed the rent prices in the different areas and how much it was in comparison. And I'd like to kind of get your opinion, or at least from a high level, what people's reactions are to that, and if that has influenced the way you guys try to push companies or where you get them to headquarter. Do you guys have any influence on where they headquarter, and is it just,
Well, it depends. You can never, force anybody to do anything they don't want to do. As a startup or a young company, you're at a kickoff meeting or something like that, and the things that are important to them are, forming a great culture, being able to recruit, being able to maybe poach people from their competing employees, being next to competitors. It's usually started within 5 miles where the CEO lives. Procore down the street, huge operation now. And so at a smaller scale, sometimes you can afford these $7 per square foot rents in Venice, or $4.50 in Playa Vista or something like that. But as companies scale, it becomes a lot less important. Your culture's already established. Maybe your brand's already established, where you don't have to necessarily recruit from Riot Games in Santa Monica or some of these other groups, and it becomes more of a dollars and cents question. And that's why you have a major organization like Viacom moving out of Santa Monica and going to Hollywood for $6 rents to $4 rents. You have Toyota and Torrance going to Texas. That's a dollars and cents question there. And this is a very cool map. People sometimes don't really understand. They'll say, we want to be in Santa Monica, we want to be in Venice, and we want to be anywhere else. And if any of you would like to email me after this, happily send it to you. It does kind of highlight, the different market rates. And you'll see a $6 rent in Santa Monica, and then just 10, 12 miles down the 10 freeway in downtown, you have $3 rents, $3.25 rents, something like that. Or up in Conejo, you have low $2 rents with 20% vacancy. And there's certainly trade-offs that go with that. There's not the tech scene is still new. In Conejo, you have some older, less hip groups. I don't want to say their names, but I'm sure you guys know who they are. And there's
You're talking about HomeStack, right?
We do have HomeStack, but when you do tend to see things visually, you can kind of see, hey, we may not be in Santa Monica, but if we're in downtown or we're in El Segundo, we can still pull from the talent pool, still live on the west side and save money.
So that's a big thing that we hit on a lot of the 805 events, because a lot of the people we meet are, you mentioned Riot Games. I know one of the first investors in Riot Games lives in Westlake, and he lived in Westlake before he invested in Riot Games, and his kids grew up in Westlake, and they were the founders of Riot Games, and they started Riot Games out there. Richard Wolpert, who comes to a lot of our events, lives in Westlake Village. He's a partner at Amplify, started a company recently called Hello Tech, and he's a partner at Excel in Silicon Valley. They're known for investing in a small company called Facebook, and going from $100-something million fund to multi-billion-dollar fund. So he's a partner there, but he started his company in Westwood. But when he was at one of our events, he asked people to raise their hands if they're an engineer, and his mind was blown at how many engineers were in the audience. And he basically, I think in hindsight, feels like he screwed up, because he did it out in Westwood, where it's way more expensive, and everyone's number one complaint is hiring engineers, but the number one complaint in Silicon Valley is hiring engineers. So you guys being based in the 805, have you guys had problems with hiring engineers and talent, and do you believe you would have had as big of problems or any different of problems being in Santa Monica, for example?
I haven't had any problems hiring engineers or hiring salespeople or customer success, customer support people. We've had an easy go of it, but maybe not everyone has the same situation. But yeah, I mean, it's been great. I think one of the big things for us as well that we talked about before that you highlighted was tax rates. A lot of people don't think of city tax, and we save a ton of money by being in Westlake Village because it's an unincorporated city actually. So it's definitely something to think about, which you brought to my attention right away. That I'm sure you advise all your founders and people of.
Yeah, one of those hidden things, when you're looking for where to lay down roots or open an office or anything like that, it's how much does it cost, how long is it going to take me to get there, who can I hire.
Does fiber play in there?
Absolutely.
Internet,
thanks in large parts of the rise in tech, there's all these big institutional landowners. They're taking these old, outdated office buildings and completely renovating them, making them creative. The polished concrete, the exposed brick, and of course the black fiber. Coming from One Wilshire, or something like the first thing on their marketing brochure. There's actually even a startup called Wired School, which is now in the business of certifying high-rise commercial office buildings on the strength of their internet infrastructure and things like that.
It's interesting. Yeah, I've thought about it in the past, but not intensely. When I had an office, it was a big deal to us that we spent a lot of extra money to get wired up. But I hadn't really thought of it too much until Gary and I had a meeting for 805 Startups with some people from the city of Ventura, and somebody else in the meeting brought up, and it was news to the people at the city. You could tell they were sort of freaking out internally that a company was potentially leaving to literally just to the other side of city limits to warehouse in Oxnard because of the internet speed. And that was a problem. And so all of a sudden, things got fixed very quickly when the city found out about it. They were going to subsidize it and figure it out and do all that. So it is a big deal because that can mean big companies staying or going in certain areas.
And tied to that, the reason why the Rams are in Agora Hills is because the building that they showed them has fiber. And that's in large part because Agora Hills actually went crazy to get fiber put into the one office building that they're looking at. They put in the necessary paperwork to get the infrastructure in place. And if they didn't do that, they would have lost the Rams moving into Agora Hills. So, yeah.
But the Rams would have surfed the web a little less and played football a little bit. Next year's really good as well.
2017.
Yeah, 2017. There we go. Well, Rams are back.
They have to download all the plays and all the stuff.
Yeah.
It would have taken them even longer to get the plays for next season, right?
Max, have you had any troubles hiring people?
A lot of the recs, so Chuck brought over a lot of his engineers.
We're starting this tonight.
It's really convenient. I think it depends on the sort of talent you're in the business that you have. So I think if you're opening up a creative design agency and you want to compete with the top agencies, Westlake might not be the best place for you, right? Because you want to be closer to Los Feliz or Venice. It's really understanding the dynamics of that. We haven't had issues hiring. But it's also depends on the company. People really believe in recs and want to be there. We have people driving from Santa Monica. We have myself driving from Sherman Oaks. We have people from just the west side, and a lot of the team is actually luckily in the Westlake area. But I think it all depends. It also depends on the where your business is. So if you HomeStack, 6,000 apps, positioned well, doing great. People want to work there. Sometimes if you're a company and no one knows you and you're starting from scratch, you either go where the team is, which Rex, Chuck was there, people were there, or you go where you can get the best talent as fast as possible. So
Yeah.
I think it's all circumstantial.
So
but-
yeah, I found when I was in Santa Monica doing invested in, we had problems with not as much hiring people, but keeping
Yeah.
people, because it was at a time when, even crazier than now, people were getting paid a lot of money, and we would have somebody for 6 months, and they would get offered a job that made 50% more, not like 10% more, and we could compete. Like they would come to me and be like, "This is how much I'm getting paid," and I'd just have to say, "Congratulations, I'm not going to be able to compete with that." But a part of that was attracting them was less about where we were and more about what you're saying. I actually very quickly learned that when my partner, who was a CTO, would vet a potential developer or engineer, because that was the hardest person for us to hire, the next step would not be for my partner, which would have been logical to just give them the offer that we put together and have him directly talk to them because he would be their boss anyway. It would be then for me, if the person was good, to take them out to lunch and give them as big of a pitch about the company as I would an investor and convince them that this company is going to be huge. This is the next big thing. This is where you gotta be. And then we give them an offer that included equity, and hopefully that equity would be enough to keep them from running when the next shiny thing came. I actually found it more of a distraction to be in those like Santa Monica, Venice kind of area. Because of that, there's so many other companies, and especially for the sought-after positions like an engineer, it was tough to keep people. Is that have you guys had retention problems with either of your companies in terms of engineers or really anyone? Or
no, I mean it's been great. There's been no voluntary
stay in the 805, people.
So it's been a pleasant surprise. I mean, I think with any real estate or not, like any new business, hiring is probably the most important thing, more important than the idea or the execution. It's the hiring, because if you hire the wrong people that are there for the wrong reasons or don't have the right skill sets, you're just setting yourself up for failure. So, I mean, I think it's a testament to our hiring standards, and some of it's of course luck, but that's probably in any business. Hiring people who you partner with, in my experience, there's nothing more important.
I always go to the sports analogy with luck and coin tosses and things like that, because I hate it when people hinge too much stuff on luck, and I go like in sports when people go like, oh, the ref called it wrong, or they got the coin toss, or whatever it is. If you leave it up to the luck, or you leave it up to the coin toss, or you leave it up to the refs by having too close a game, then that's your fault. You still lost, right? So I think it's a testament to you guys more than it is to luck. But that said, I'll open it up to questions to the audience if you guys have any. You look like you're itching to ask again. Okay. Good. 10 minutes. Sweet. So let you recharge. But that said, I mean, we're here, all of us, because we're clearly a part of businesses in the 805, or we like to be out here, and whether that's the right move, or we just freaking love punishing ourselves, or we just love, we want to have our kids one day go to a usable school system. But there's reasons why we're here. I'm going to take this back to Stephen really quick before we open it up to the audience. And do you see a progression in, my theory lately has been, when I'm talking to some of the venture funds, some of the people, and why this area is growing so much, is all of us getting a little bit older, getting to the age where some of us are getting married and having kids. And I know that a bunch of the companies that I was, and people I worked with when I was in Santa Monica and Venice all the time are all getting married, having kids, and wanting to send their kids to schools where we live. And that's one of the reasons why they're in that area. And that's one of the reasons why all of a sudden there's a lot more happening in this area. Do you see a correlation between maybe age of people you're talking to and where they're located? or experience level, like once they've had a few successful companies, they start venturing where they'd rather live versus where's the cool place to have a company. Is there a correlation there, or am I just justifying what I do?
Well, it's easy to fall in love with the 805, right? I went to UC Santa Barbara. Any free weekend, I'll be up in Los Olivos sampling the finest Pinot Noir things around. You are starting to see, younger people with the companies that will consider, a Westlake Village or a Calabasas or something like that, as opposed to Santa Monica, and that's for some of the reasons we discussed. The Conejo Valley and even the southern part of Santa Barbara has always had a very strong presence of really, really strong, national publicly traded companies. PennyMac has a huge presence. Lynda.com, now LinkedIn.
Microsoft.
Microsoft.
Yeah, it got bought by LinkedIn, and Microsoft bought LinkedIn.
Intel has acquired some big companies out here. Countrywide, which turned into B of A. Biotech is so huge in the Conejo Valley. Baxalta and Amgen. There's just a lot of reasons to be out here, from a lifestyle perspective, certainly, but also from a business perspective as well.
Cool. Yeah, I've from talking about the big exits recently in this area and stuff. That gave me a lot of confidence in this area, doing a lot more events in this area. When beginning of last year, probably, I started sending half jabs to a lot of the investors I knew in LA, saying, "Hey, you should be spending more time up in the 805 because I saw what happened at Lynda. I saw." You see what happened at, you saw MindBody and now the Trade Desk and all these companies that are going public and having huge exits in the area. And a lot of them said, yeah, that's why we invested in those companies, because some of them were, I didn't do my homework before I sent them those emails. They're like, yeah, I was in the seed round of that company, you idiot. But then the next statement was, it was one of our biggest wins we ever had, and we want to spend more time up there. Where should we spend more time? And then I'd go, hey, have you seen this company called Rex? You should meet them. And hey, do you know these guys? You should totally meet them. And then all of a sudden, I started realizing they were coming to us. They were coming to our demo days. It used to be that to get somebody to come to one of our events, I'd have to twist their arm. And now I'm calling up a partner at Pritzker Group who has a $6 billion fund, and they'll come to Thousand Oaks to a demo day. That's pretty awesome. And we have something here. And so there's more reasons than just the fact that there's usable schools and that you can go on a hike that doesn't feel like you're at the mall. But it's an awesome place to be, even for those other reasons. So obviously I'm heavy on being out here. But any of you guys have any questions for these guys before we? Yeah.
Sure, for the Rex person. Why 2%? Nice. Why not 1% or 3 or 2.5%?
Well,
significance
with any business, we have to be profitable. So we went out with 1% because it was sort of a bigger hook, and more catchy. And we wanted to validate our assumptions that there was a demand. And we saw that at 1%, there was a demand. There was also a little bit of a skepticism of it's too good to be true. So we went to 2% about probably 3-4 months ago, and we've actually seen our conversion rates increase. And we want to stick at 2% for the time being because we still want to have a strong competitive advantage when it comes to price. So if you go to the discount broker side, you're probably going to be best case scenario around 4%, traditionals 5 to 6%. So we still offer huge savings on that end, and we're able to differentiate ourselves with 2% still being sticky. It also, we've been able to achieve kind of a unit economic positive on every home we move. So that 2% seemed to be the right number. Again, we're only about a year into our business, so anything can change.
So it's not, I'm sorry.
I don't know, go ahead.
So the property's not put into the traditional multiple listed.
It's not. It's not.
Okay. So then it's, if a person wants to buy one of their properties, they have to contact you, who's one of your agents.
They do. I mean, we cooperate with other agents. We just don't compensate. So if you come with an agent, you guys can, you can either increase your offer price or figure out a deal outside of the transaction. But we're not legally obligated to. We've also noticed that a lot of times when buyers hear that, they will leave their agent if they need to. So,
from an economic, if I could, a couple more questions on this. So, for a given property, if say $1 million property, not that uncommon, I believe, at a 6% commission or rate, the commission would be $60,000. At a 2%, the commission would be $20,000. So it's a $40,000 net difference. Are you lowering the price of the property by $40,000? You know, what happens before? Does the owner keep it? Is it spread between the buyer and the seller? Does it evaporate? Where does that
right
go?
now, no. Well, that owner or the seller they give us $20,000, and the rest is theirs. So they're saving $40,000 on commission. We do want to be able to get to a point at a little bit of a larger scale where we can offer more competitive pricing. So if they can, reduce the home of their price by 1 to 2%, keep 2%, and save 2%, everyone kind of wins, and that commission is ultimately split towards everyone and to the greater good.
But there's some consequences of doing it, because now you're driving down
Yeah.
selling prices, which means for comps for everyone else. Right?
That's possible, but to date it's been well-priced homes. We price homes as the market dictates, and then the seller takes home.
Sure, the difference.
Something you touched on, which is kind of neat, it'd be cool to hear if Matt, you've come across this at all, also is sort of the pricing psychology, because at 1%, a lot of people thought it was too good to be true. You're having a higher conversion rate, actually charging more money. I remember there was a company, I'm trying to remember who it was, I think it was Stock, a Santa Monica company that did a lot of pricing psychology and A/B testing on their product, and they had a product that was $9.99 a year. They were testing that versus $10 a year, and then at some point they just had a test page that was $12 a year. That was more expensive, and it converted way higher. And the reason they sort of figured was that you somehow do this math in your head at $12 a year. That's just $1 a month. That's so cheap, and just more people signed on, even though it was more expensive than when their product was $10 a month. So there is a sort of a thing there. Have you tested various price ranges, Matt, for your product? Has that played into account? Is there sort of more? I know that I've priced stuff in the past just based on competition. Well, they're selling it for $50K. I'm going to do it for 25 and blow them out of the water, right? Is there?
Yeah. So we don't have really any competition as far as what we do yet. But we've raised the price on our product a few times because we've added in more and more features and different things that cost us more money. But we try and stay as competitive as possible. The hard part about selling a product that doesn't have any competition is no one has anything to contextualize it to. So you don't know what you're comparing something to, whereas, if you're buying a car, you can compare a Ford to a Chevy or a BMW to a Mercedes. So a lot of people compare us to websites, and we're still actually cheaper than the common websites that real estate agents purchase, which is how we've priced it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's enough.
All right, hey, yeah, a question first.
For the HomeStack. So on your app, it sounds more like you're able to give that to an agent, and maybe capture people interested in their home or buying. Have you looked at rolling out any other products, like, for example, being able to come up with an algorithm for pricing a home appropriately, based on trends, based on things, based on the data that you brought in through the MLS? Have you been looking at going down that avenue?
Yeah, so some of the other products that we're launching I can't talk about because they're kind of in our skunk works type program, if that's what you would call it. But we are launching some pretty cool products in 2017 in Q1 as well as Q2. I can't say that we have a pricing algorithm that's coming out, but what's great about HomeStack is all of our agents really own the product, and they love it because they're giving it out to their clients. It is the direct representation of themselves. So we get lots of great feedback from them of things that they would want to see. And so we take all of that feedback and we build out more great products. And so we do have a couple really cool new features that are coming out, but it is not a pricing engine. So
There are products out there, right? But I've heard that they're not super accurate. Actually, Rex is eventually going to sell my condo. We're not ready yet, but they did give me this like pricing report, and they showed it was through some other company. It wasn't something they did. And they said, "Here's what the computer says. That's not really accurate if you look at other things." And it's similar to Zillow, right? Like it's not accurate at all. I mean, but it to some degree. But if your house is 10% off, that's a significant amount, especially out here.
I'm sure you've found, but it's really hard to create an auto valuation method, or AVM, they call it in the industry. There's just too many factors. Westlake is an example. You have houses on the lake that have a dock, that can have a boat, and the house right next to it cannot have a dock or a boat, and it's $200,000 less in price. You could never figure that out with a computer, that it's not allowed to have a dock. So that's just one example of so many. And that's why Zillow's estimates are so off. Yeah.
Might want to hire a broker.
Oh, that perfect segue. So, as a broker, you're a broker. I'm a buyer, right? I'm looking for commercial real estate space.
Okay.
You represent me, or you represent the seller. Like, I'm going to buy once every 5, 10, 20 years, whereas you have to deal with the same landlord, many times over the year. You got much more interest in keeping the landlord happy than me. How do you compensate that?
That is a great question, and you're absolutely right. Because you hire me, but you will never exchange any money with me. I will, deliver you to Equity Office Properties or Kilroy, and you'll sign a lease, and they'll write me a big fat check, and we'll go our separate ways, and we'll come back together in 5 years or something like that. I think that's why you